Hey guys, Rory Cummins here with Building Wealth with Real Estate. Today's video is going to be going through an answer to a question I get all the time. It is, why are you in short-term rentals? What's the profitability? How does that differentiate from long-term rentals? Coming from the space of long-term rentals, which I've been into almost 20 years now, I do still own them. I'm not going to say that it's a bad investment by any means. It's a great investment. It creates wealth over the long term. It's very predictable. It's more, I wouldn't say it's safer by any means, but at the same time, like it's easier to finance a long-term rental, and it's usually easier to scale that depending on different parameters. However, what I really want to dig into today is the short-term rental side of why it's a great vehicle to create wealth quicker, how you can really control your outcome on a cash-on-cash return, and how that can far exceed what you can expect to receive on the long-term rental front. So I'm going to make the math super easy for all you guys out there on, not putting this on a whiteboard, but just making the math super easy between two different investments, okay? We're going to say you bought a house for $100,000 on long-term rental, and you're going to get $1,000 per month. I'm just going to pick basic rent, basic purchase price to make the math easy. And let's say you make $250 per month after all expenses are paid on your $1,000 a month rent for your $100,000 house. There are areas of the country you can probably still buy a $100,000 house, believe it or not. But just to make the math easy, let's say you're getting $1,000 in rent, and that's what you make. At $250 a month, you've made $3,000 per year in profit. You're probably going to have to get a lot of those homes in order to, quit your day job and just go full time into real estate. But at the end of the day, as that compares to short-term rentals, and why I decided to, keep some of my long-term rentals, but really shift into the short-term rental space long-term, is you are able to control the expected revenue you're going to make every year, and the overall cash-on-cash return of your short-term rental as it relates to the long-term rental is, it's far above what a long-term rental can perform. Just, to give you an idea of the going rate, you probably already know this, most long-term rentals are going to make around 8% to 12% return on a yearly basis. The safer the asset, the lower the return, right? So you might only make 4 or 6%, especially with interest rates as high as they are when I film this video right now. However, it is possible to make 15% or more on a long-term rental for overall cash-on-cash return. It's not easy to find nowadays, but it's still doable. But let's just say the average is 8 to 12%. With a short-term rental, I can tell you that you're definitely going to get double-digit returns. If you're not, you're doing something wrong. At the end of the day, my internal rate of return on cash is typically 24% minimum. It seems high. You may think it is. That's even with management. However, at the end of the day, that is achievable. The main reason being is you get to control your nightly rate. You get to control your occupancy. It's all about what you offer, how you're communicating, how you're managing it, where the property is located, how well you've designed it. All of these different variables, and there's a lot of them, all these different variables will tie into your overall cash-on-cash return. So at the end of the day, if you can 2x or 3x your cash-on-cash return and control the asset, control your outcome, to me, it's a no-brainer to go into the space. Yes, it is more work typically to manage a short-term rental and to go through the process to set it up and everything else. However, to me, the rewards far outweigh the efforts to get there, and you don't necessarily have to manage it yourself. You might want to do that when you first start out to learn the business, but that's a whole nother video, but you don't have to manage it yourself to achieve the returns that you can make in this space. So I just want to give a quick example. We already talked about the $100,000 long-term rental. Let's say you buy a $350,000 house for short-term, okay? You bought it for $350,000, and let's say it makes $175 a night at 75% occupancy. That translates to around 275 days of the year that it's booked at $175 a night. You're going to make about $1,000 a month, right? I'm just going to make the math easy. So let's say you make $12,000 a year in profit for the $350,000 house versus a $100,000 house you're making $3,000 a year on. So it's already head and shoulders on profitability, even though it cost more to buy it, and you probably needed more capital to stage it and make it nice and possibly renovate, whatever. But where it gets really interesting is, what if you just increase that nightly rate by $20 a night and do nothing else, right? You go from $175 to $195 a night at the same occupancy, right? You didn't increase anything. It's still 75% for the year. That will basically translate to about $5,500 in profits per year just by increasing the nightly rate by $20 a night. Totally doable. Sometimes you can just raise it $20 and just get it. You don't even have to add any value to the market, which I know seems crazy, but a lot of people get pricing wrong when they're listing their places for rent. So that's more than achievable. But what if you increase your nightly rate by $100 a night on average for 75% of the year, right? It is probably going to require some value add to your property, to your management, to what you offer to the market. However, it's more than doable. That is going to translate to it's over $25,000 or $26,000 in profitability for the year on top of the $12,000 you were already making. So you've just, pretty much, more than 2x your amount of money that you were going to make in that first year just by raising that nightly rate. And maybe you had to spend $10,000 to do that, but think of your cash on cash return of that $10,000 investment, right? I mean, it could be as easy as, putting in some type of amenity on your property that cost you $5,000 or $10,000 to then create more value in your property to then achieve a higher nightly rate. But the reason I love short-term rentals is you can't do that in long-term and expect the same result. Yes, you can renovate your kitchen, or yes, you could maybe have you add a carport to your property for covered parking, or whatever you do to increase the value to a tenant on your long-term rental. You're probably going to be limited by only doing a $50 to $100 increase per month versus a nightly rate of that same amount in the short-term rental space. So, when you think about it that way, you really control your outcome. You really control the performance and that overall cash on cash return you're going to get in the short-term rental game. And that is why I love it. I cannot say as much about it. I just know that, if you're into real estate and you're in for this long haul and you want to be creative, you want to have an eye for design, you want to create, a great experience and offer hospitality to your guests, you can really elevate yourself in the space that you're in and get yourself into that top 10 or 20% of all the other operators that are out there, right? At the end of the day, you're competing with other short-term rentals, just like you do on the long-term rental front. But if you know how to play the game and you play it right, you can really 2 or 3x or even 4x your profitability. It is not unusual to get returns of 25, 30, 40% in this space with a particular property. I know it seems crazy to believe that, but at the end of the day, I know it's possible because we've got them in our own portfolio. And when you learn how to play those games and pull all the different levers, you see the overall opportunity that you can get in short-term rentals versus long-term rentals. So again, don't want to harp on long-term rentals. I still own some. I've been in it for a long time, and I think it's a great avenue. It's almost like set it and forget it, and it just, it's predictable. But at the end of the day, the short-term rental space offers a lot more opportunity. The other thing is too, if you decide you don't want a short-term rental the property anymore, you can always just long-term rent it. Maybe it doesn't achieve the same amount of rent that you want long-term that you would expect, because again, you probably bought it as a short-term rental, but it definitely gives you a backup plan, right? So if the location and the property makes sense, oftentimes it does make sense to try to do a nightly rate with occupancy in place for that property to try to achieve the returns that you can get instead of just doing a long-term rental. So hopefully this video helped you guys. I just want to really talk about, a simple bump in nightly rate and what that can do to your cash on cash return. The other lever, of course, is occupancy. If you can get your occupancy up but keep the same nightly rate, again, it can do amazing things for your overall annual revenue. The expense side of things is a little bit harder to pick up. Yes, you can save some money there, but you're not going to see quite the the increases that you're going to get on nightly rate and occupancy increase as you will in terms of cutting expenses on a short-term rental. But at the end of the day, hopefully you see the value there. Hopefully this helps. Always love to get questions, so if you guys want to drop me a question on here or subscribe, I'll be putting out more of these videos to talk more about this amazing asset class of short-term rentals. So see you guys in the next one.